The distress signal pulsed through the quantum channels, its urgency causing every emergency receiver at Earth's Interstellar Veterinary Corps to light up simultaneously. Dr. Han Yuri sat bolt upright in her office, her dark eyes scanning the incoming data stream with growing amazement. "This can't be right," she muttered, but the numbers didn't lie. The creature in distress was over 40 kilometers long, with a mass that rivaled small moons. More importantly, it was the legendary Void Leviathan, a being whose mere name caused spacefaring races to alter their travel routes by hundreds of light years. Within hours, she was aboard the medical frigate Mercy's Hand, leading a team of Earth's finest cenoveterinary specialists toward the coordinates where the massive creature drifted in space. The ship's engines hummed steadily as they pushed through the darkness between stars. Yuri stood at the observation deck, watching the streaks of light flash past. Her team was busy preparing their equipment in the medical bay below. They had brought everything they could think of, from planet-sized doses of antibiotics to massive scanners designed to work in space. "Doctor, we're receiving another message," the ship's AI announced. "It's from the Galactic Council." Yuri sighed. She had expected this. The Council, made up of the oldest spacefaring races, had never approved of humanity's interference in galactic matters. "Put them through," she said. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the stern face of a council elder. His crystalline features sparkled with barely contained anger. "Dr. Han, you must turn back immediately. The Void Leviathan is too dangerous to approach. It has destroyed entire solar systems." "With all due respect," Yuri replied calmly, "we received a distress call. On Earth, we have laws about responding to those. If something is in pain and asking for help, we help it. You humans, and your compassion," the elder spat the word like it was dirty. "That thing is a monster. Its death would be a blessing to the galaxy." Yuri straightened her back. "Every creature deserves care, even the ones you call monsters." She cut the transmission. The medical team gathered in the briefing room. Dr. Park Jin, the chief scanner operator, pulled up the preliminary readings. "The creature's vital signs are all over the place," he said, pointing to the chaotic waves on the screen. "Whatever is wrong with it, it's serious." "Could it be playing dead?" asked one of the younger vets. "To lure us in?" "No," Yuri said firmly. "Look at these pain indicators. They're off the charts. This is real suffering." As they got closer, they could see the Void Leviathan through the ship's windows. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Its body looked like it was made of living crystal, each scale reflecting starlight like a mirror. But instead of moving gracefully through space as it should, it was writhing, its massive form twisting in obvious agony. "Prepare the approach pods," Yuri ordered. "We need to get closer for detailed scans." The pods were small, tough vehicles designed for close examination of space-dwelling creatures. As Yuri and Jin climbed into theirs, the rest of the team watched nervously from the ship. Their pod moved slowly toward the massive creature. Up close, they could see that some of its crystalline scales were dulled and cracked. "This isn't normal," Jin muttered, adjusting his scanners. "These readings suggest some kind of infection." Suddenly, the Leviathan's body spasmed. A wave of energy pulsed out from it, making their pod systems flicker. "Hold steady," Yuri said, even as warning lights flashed around them. "It's not attacking us. It's in pain." Through the pod's windows, Yuri could see one of the creature's eyes. It was enormous, bigger than their entire ship, and filled with an ancient intelligence and suffering. The eye focused on their tiny pod, and for a moment, Yuri felt a connection with the massive being. "Look," Jin exclaimed. The scanners were showing something new. "There's something moving under its scales. Some kind of parasite, maybe." Yuri leaned forward, studying the readings. "Not just one parasite. There are thousands of them. Maybe millions. They're eating it alive from the inside." Their pod's communication system crackled. "Doctor, we're picking up multiple ships approaching. The Mercy's hand reported. They're armed. Let me guess, Yuri said grimly. The council decided not to take no for an answer. She looked again at the suffering creature before them. The Void Leviathan was dying, yes, but they could save it. They had to try. This wasn't just about helping one creature anymore. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity's way wasn't wrong, that compassion wasn't weakness. Take us back to the ship, she ordered. We need to prepare for both medical treatment and possibly having to defend our patient. She smiled slightly. After all, that's what good doctors do. As their pod turned back toward the Mercy's hand, the Leviathan's eye followed them. In that massive gaze, Yuri saw something she hadn't expected. Hope. The real work was just beginning, and it would be the greatest challenge of her career. But as she looked at her determined team, Yuri knew they would succeed. Because that's what humans did. They helped those in need, no matter how big or scary they might seem to others. The Void Leviathan would live. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would learn something from this about judging creatures before understanding them. The alien delegation aboard the diplomatic vessel, Star's Wisdom, was adamant. You cannot help this beast, insisted Ambassador Cole of the Mindari Collective. The Void Leviathan has destroyed countless ships, devoured mining colonies whole. It is a mercy that it dies. Dr. Kim Daz stood beside Yuri, his weathered face set in determination. On Earth, we have a saying, all life is precious. We've rehabilitated predators that others thought beyond help. This will be no different. As they approached the massive form floating in the void, its crystalline scales reflecting starlight like a living constellation, Yuri understood why species feared it. Its maw could swallow their largest ships whole, and the electromagnetic pulses it emitted had disabled entire battle fleets. The Mercy's Hand's conference room was packed with representatives from 12 different species. The air was thick with tension as holographic displays showed the destruction the Leviathan had caused over the centuries. Entire space stations reduced to debris, mining colonies vanished without a trace, and vast regions of space declared too dangerous for travel. Look at this footage, a reptilian delegate hissed, pointing to a recording of the Leviathan consuming an asteroid mining operation. 3,000 workers lost in seconds. Kim Dai studied the footage carefully, his expert eyes noting details others had missed. Notice the creature's movement patterns. They're erratic, unnatural. This isn't normal hunting behavior. It's acting like an animal in extreme distress. Yuri nodded, stepping forward to enhance a particular section of the recording. See these energy readings. The electromagnetic pulses aren't weapons. They're more like a cry for help. The alien delegates muttered among themselves. Ambassador Cole's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained anger. You humans are too young to understand. Your species wasn't even spacefaring when this monster first appeared. We have lost generations to its hunger. Then help us understand, Yuri said softly. Tell us its history. When did it first appear? When did its aggressive behavior begin? An elderly delegate from the Stellar Archive stepped forward. Her translucent body glowed faintly as she accessed ancient records. The Void Leviathan was first documented 12,000 years ago. Initially, it was peaceful, moving through the dark spaces between galaxies, feeding only on space debris and natural phenomena. The room grew quiet as ancient holographic images appeared, showing a majestic creature gliding gracefully through space, its crystalline body a thing of beauty rather than terror. The change came suddenly. The archivist continued. 8,000 years ago, it entered a previously unexplored region of space. When it emerged, she paused, her glow dimming. It was different, aggressive, unpredictable. Kim Dae exchanged a meaningful look with Yuri. That timing matches with our parasite theory. Something infected it in that region of space. Look, Yuri pointed to newer readings from their scans. The parasites we detected, they're concentrated around its electromagnetic organ. They're not just causing pain. They're affecting its ability to control its own powers. The medical team's data filled the room's displays. Complex diagrams showed how the parasites had spread through the Leviathan's crystalline body structure, disrupting its natural systems. Every time it tries to feed normally, Kim Dae explained, the parasites cause it pain. They've driven it into a permanent state of panic and agony. Imagine being in constant pain for 8,000 years. Some of the delegates began to show signs of understanding. Even Ambassador Cole's hostile glow dimmed slightly. "But how can you possibly treat something so large?" asked a younger delegate. "The risks. We've already developed a treatment plan," Yuri said confidently. "We'll need help from all of you. Your species have technologies and knowledge that could be crucial." The room erupted in discussion. Slowly, reluctantly, the delegates began to see the situation differently. The monster that had terrorized their space for millennia was itself a victim. As the meeting continued, a sudden alarm blared through the ship. The Leviathan had begun another spasm, its massive body contorting in space. The electromagnetic pulse that followed was stronger than any before. "We're running out of time," Kim Dae said urgently. "Either we help it now, or it dies, and takes a large portion of this sector with it in its death throes." The delegates watched through the ship's windows as the massive creature writhed in agony. Its crystalline scales, once beautiful, now cracked and dulled, caught the light of distant stars like a broken mirror. Yuri stepped forward one last time. "You've tried fighting it for thousands of years. That hasn't worked. Let us try healing it instead. Sometimes the most dangerous creatures become the strongest allies if you just show them kindness." One by one, the delegates began to nod. Even Ambassador Cole finally gave a reluctant agreement. As the meeting ended, the medical team rushed to prepare for their first treatment attempt. Looking out at the suffering creature, Yuri felt a mix of fear and determination. They were about to attempt the largest veterinary procedure in human history. The fate of not just the Leviathan, but possibly the entire sector, rested on their success. "Ready?" Kim Dae asked, standing beside her. Yuri nodded. "Ready. Let's show the galaxy what human compassion can do." Their small medical ship approached the massive creature, no longer as enemies, but as healers. And in the void of space, a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. The initial scans were revealing. Lee Min and Park Sun, the medical imaging specialists, worked tirelessly to compile a full picture of the creature's internal systems. What they found shocked everyone. "It's not one parasite," Min explained, pointing to the holographic display. "It's a complex symbiotic infection. These organisms are driving it mad with pain." Yuri nodded, her mind already racing through treatment possibilities. Earth's history with treating large marine mammals would prove invaluable here. The challenge would be scaling up the treatments to work on something this massive. The medical bay of the Mercy's Hand had been transformed into a data center. Holographic displays covered every wall, showing different layers of the Leviathan's complex internal structure. Lee Nin adjusted another scan, his fingers moving quickly over the controls as new information poured in. "Look at this," Park Sun called out, highlighting a section of the creature's crystalline nervous system. "The parasites are forming networks. They're working together, almost like a hive mind." The team gathered around her display. The parasites appeared as dark spots against the Leviathan's glowing tissues, connected by thin threads of energy. They pulsed in unison, sending waves of disruption through the creature's body. "That's why normal treatments haven't worked," Yuri realized. "If you kill some of them, the others just adapt and grow stronger. We need to target all of them at once." Kim Dae pulled up Earth's historical medical records. "Remember the case of the Pacific gray whales, when they were infected with colonial parasites back in 2090. But this is millions of times larger," Min pointed out. "The amount of medicine we'd need." "Maybe we don't need medicine," Park Sun said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "The Leviathan's body is crystalline, right? It processes energy in ways we're just beginning to understand. What if we could use that?" The team worked through the night, analyzing data and developing theories. They discovered that the Leviathan's crystalline structure wasn't just for protection. It was a complex system for channeling and processing energy from space itself. The parasites are using the creature's own energy channels, Min explained to the assembled team. They've tapped into its power distribution network. That's why it can't control its electromagnetic pulses anymore. Yuri studied the latest scans. So they're not just feeding on it. They're using it like a battery, and every time it tries to fight back, they turn its own energy against it, Kim Dai finished, causing massive pain and making it lash out. A junior technician raised her hand. But if they're connected to its energy systems, couldn't we use that against them? Like overloading a circuit. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Park Sun rushed to her calculations. If we could channel enough energy of the right frequency through its crystal matrix, we could disrupt the parasite's network, Min said excitedly. Break their connection to the host. The next few hours were a flurry of activity. The team worked on modifying their ship's energy projectors, calculating exact frequencies, and planning the procedure. They would only get one chance. If they got it wrong, they could kill the Leviathan instead of saving it. The biggest challenge will be timing, Yuri told her team. We need to hit all the parasite clusters simultaneously. If even one group survives, they could rebuild their network. Through the observation window, they could see the massive creature still writhing in space. Its movements were getting weaker. They were running out of time. Kim Da organized the team into groups. Some would monitor the Leviathan's vital signs, others would control the energy pulses, and a third team would stand ready with emergency protocols if anything went wrong. This is either going to be the biggest breakthrough in xenoveterinary medicine, he said with a slight smile, or the most spectacular failure in human medical history. As they made their final preparations, Park Sun made another discovery. The parasites. They're not natural. Look at their genetic structure. Someone engineered these creatures. The implications were disturbing. Had someone deliberately infected the Leviathan, turned a peaceful space-dwelling being into a weapon of terror? But those questions would have to wait. Right now, their priority was saving their patient's life. The team took their positions. Through the ship's windows, the Leviathan's massive form filled their view, its crystalline scales dulled with sickness but still beautiful. All teams ready? Yuri asked over the comm system. One by one, they confirmed. Energy projectors aligned, Min reported. Vital sign monitors active, Park Sun added. Emergency protocols standing by, Kim Da confirmed. Yuri took a deep breath. They were about to attempt something never done before, using a space creature's own crystalline structure as a weapon against its parasites. If they succeeded, they would not only save the Leviathan, but also prove that humanity's approach to medicine could work on a galactic scale. Beginning energy pulse in 3, 2, 1. The ship's modified projectors hummed to life, sending carefully calibrated energy waves into the Leviathan's crystal matrix. The creature's entire body began to glow, and for a moment, it was the most beautiful sight any of them had ever seen. Then the real work began, and the fate of the galaxy's most feared creature hung in the balance. The breakthrough came during their third week. Song Hua, their xenobiologist, discovered a way to communicate with the Leviathan using modified whale songs transmitted through space. The creature's responses were surprising, not just intelligent, but eloquent. It's been in pain for centuries, Hua translated, her voice tight with emotion. The parasites came from a dark space it passed through. No one ever tried to help before. They just ran or attacked. The medical team gathered around Hua's communication station, watching in amazement as patterns of light rippled across the Leviathan's crystalline surface in response to their transmitted songs. The massive creature had been growing calmer since their first treatment, though they still had a long way to go. Can you ask it about its origins? Yuri asked, fascinated by the pulsing lights that seemed to dance across the creature's scales. Hua adjusted the frequency of their transmission. The modified whale songs echoed through space, a haunting melody that seemed to touch something deep within the Leviathan's consciousness. The response came in waves of light and electromagnetic pulses that HFY's instruments translated into words. It says it was born in the space between galaxies. HFY read, her eyes wide. Its kind are rare. They're meant to be caretakers of the void, keeping balance in the empty spaces. Kim Da leaned forward, watching the translation scroll across the screen. Ask it about the parasites. We need to understand how they work if we're going to remove them completely. The Leviathan's response was lengthy this time. Its massive body trembled as it communicated, sending ripples through the surrounding space. The dark space was wrong. HFY translated slowly. Something waited there. The parasites were meant to turn it into a weapon, to make it destroy. The team fell silent, processing this information. The Leviathan had been turned into a living weapon against its will, forced to harm when its natural purpose was to protect. Watch this, HFY said suddenly. She transmitted a series of gentle, soothing tones, similar to those used to calm distressed whales on Earth. The effect on the Leviathan was immediate. Its crystalline body relaxed, the usual painful spasms easing. It responds to kindness, Park Sun observed, making notes, just like any other living being. Over the next few days, they established a routine. Every few hours, HFY would communicate with the creature, learning more about its nature while sending calming signals. The rest of the team used this peaceful time to continue their treatments, gradually weakening the parasite's hold. It's asking about Earth, HFY announced one morning. It wants to know about the world that produced creatures who would help instead of harm. Yuri had an idea. They began sharing images and sounds from Earth, ocean waves, whale songs, the sound of rainforests. The Leviathan absorbed everything with what could only be described as childlike wonder. Hard to believe this is the same creature that destroyed entire space stations, Li Min commented, watching the gentle way the Leviathan now moved through space. It never wanted to destroy anything. HFY replied softly. The parasites didn't just cause pain. They twisted its natural instincts. Imagine being forced to hurt others when your very nature is to protect. During one communication session, the Leviathan shared something unexpected. Through HFY's translation, they learned that it could sense the parasite's weakening. For the first time in centuries, it was beginning to feel like itself again. It wants to help us help it, HFY explained excitedly. It can guide us to the largest parasite clusters, show us exactly where to focus our treatments. This cooperation changed everything. With the Leviathan's guidance, their treatment efficiency improved dramatically. The creature's natural healing abilities, no longer suppressed by the parasites, began to work with their treatments instead of against them. One evening, as the team was reviewing their progress, HFY received a different kind of message from the Leviathan. It's thanking us, she said, wiping tears from her eyes. But more than that, it's offering something in return. Knowledge about space travel, about the void between galaxies. Things no other species knows. We didn't help it to get knowledge in return, Yuri said firmly. It knows that. HFY smiled. That's exactly why it wants to share. It says beings who help without expecting reward are rare in this galaxy. It wants to protect us, like it was meant to protect the void. The team worked late into the night, establishing deeper communication protocols. The Leviathan's vast intelligence, freed from pain and fear, proved to be a wonder. It shared stories of cosmic events no human had ever witnessed, a phenomena that existed only in the darkest spaces between stars. But more important than the knowledge was the trust they had built. The galaxy's most feared creature had become their patient, their teacher, and increasingly their friend. It was proof that humanity's compassion could bridge even the vastest of gaps, whether they were gaps of space, species, or understanding. As HFY translated another gentle message from their patient, she smiled. It says it's starting to remember what it feels like to be whole again, to be itself. The team watched through the observation window as the Leviathan moved peacefully through space, its crystalline body catching starlight like diamonds. They were witnessing not just the healing of a body, but the restoration of a being's true nature. And in that moment, they all understood that they were part of something much bigger than themselves, a turning point in galactic history, where fear gave way to understanding and a monster became a miracle. The treatment was working until alarms blared across the medical frigate. Choi Ram burst into the medical bay, his face pale. Someone's deployed parasitic accelerants. The infection is spreading faster than ever. Yuri's team scrambled to counteract the sabotage. The Leviathan's vital signs were crashing, its massive form convulsing in space. They had hours, at most, to save it. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the ship as the medical team rushed to their stations. Through the observation windows, they could see the Leviathan's crystalline body pulsing with sickly dark energy. The parasites, driven into a frenzy by the accelerant, were spreading like wildfire through its system. How did this happen? Kim Da demanded, his fingers flying over the control panels as he tried to stabilize the creature's life signs. The accelerant had to come from somewhere nearby. Li Min checked the sensor readings. There's a trace energy signature. It looks like it was fired from a cloaked ship, still in the area. The Leviathan's pain was evident. Its massive body twisted in space, sending out waves of destructive energy that made the medical frigate's shields crackle. Song Hua was at her communication station, desperately trying to maintain contact with the suffering creature. "It's trying to help us," she called out. "It can sense where the accelerant is strongest. But the pain..." Her voice trailed off as another violent spasm rocked the creature. Park Sun pulled up a holographic display of the Leviathan's internal systems. "The accelerant is attacking the progress we made. It's supercharging the parasites, making them multiply faster than ever." "Can we modify our treatment?" Yuri asked, watching in horror as dark patches spread across the creature's crystalline scales. "Not fast enough." Kim Da shook his head. "We need something more immediate, something drastic." Choi Ram studied the readings. "What if we reverse it? Use the accelerant against itself." The team looked at him. "Explain," Yuri demanded. "The accelerant is pushing the parasites into overdrive. If we can turn that energy back on them..." He worked quickly at his station, running simulations. "We could burn them out." "But the strain on the Leviathan," Park Sun protested. "That much energy could kill it." Another violent spasm rocked their ship. The Leviathan's pain was reaching critical levels. Through Hua's communication link, they could sense its desperation. "It's willing to risk it," Hua translated, her voice shaking. "It says better to die fighting than return to centuries of torture." Yuri made her decision. "Prepare the energy inverters. All power to the medical systems. We're doing this now." The team moved with practiced efficiency despite the chaos around them. As they worked, a new alarm sounded. 3 ships decloaking. Li Min announced, "They're charging weapons." "Saboteurs," Kim Da growled. "They're here to make sure we fail." The Leviathan, even in its pain, sensed the threat to its healers. With what seemed like enormous effort, it positioned its massive body between the medical frigate and the attacking ships. Its crystalline scales, now more black than clear, still managed to deflect the first volley of weapons fire. "It's protecting us," Hua said softly. "Even now." "Then we better not waste its effort," Yuri replied. "Ram, start the energy inversion. Sun, monitor its vital signs. Everyone else, braced for impact." The ship's modified medical systems powered up, sending carefully calibrated energy pulses into the Leviathan's crystal matrix. The creature's entire body began to glow as the treatment took effect. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the parasites began to react. The accelerant that was meant to strengthen them was being turned against them, burning them out from within. The Leviathan's body convulsed more violently than ever. "Vital signs critical," Sun shouted over the noise of straining equipment. "We're losing it." Keep going, Yuri ordered. It's our only chance. The attacking ships fired again, but their weapons couldn't penetrate the Leviathan's bulk. Even dying, it stood firm in its protection of the humans who had tried to help it. The next few minutes were chaos. Warning signals blared as equipment overloaded. The ship's power systems trained to maintain the energy pulse. The Leviathan's massive body writhed in space, its crystalline surface alternating between blinding light and complete darkness. Then, suddenly, everything went quiet. The Leviathan floated motionless in space. Its once bright scales were dull and lifeless. The attacking ships hung back, waiting. Life signs? Yuri asked quietly. Park Sun checked her readings, then checked them again. A smile spread across her face. Stable and climbing. The parasites, they're gone. All of them. A ripple of light passed across the Leviathan's surface, weak at first, then stronger. Through HFY's communication link, they felt rather than heard its response. Gratitude, relief, and something like joy. The attacking ships, seeing their plan had failed, turned to flee. But the Leviathan had other ideas. Now freed from pain for the first time in centuries, it moved with incredible speed and grace. A single pulse of energy from its restored crystal matrix disabled the hostile vessels. It's asking if we wanted to destroy them. HFY translated. No, Yuri said firmly. We'll turn them over to the Galactic Council. Let justice be done properly. The Leviathan's response was immediate. Approval and respect. It had judged its healers correctly. They were not just skilled, but wise. As the crisis passed and the team began treating the after effects of their desperate gamble, they realized something fundamental had changed. The galaxy's most feared creature had not only been healed, it had been transformed. In its darkest moment, it had chosen to protect rather than destroy. And that perhaps was the greatest healing of all. As the emergency stabilization protocols took effect, Nam Gil made an astonishing discovery. The parasites weren't just causing pain, they were affecting the creature's electromagnetic organ, causing the destructive pulses that had made it so feared. It never meant to attack anyone, Jill explained to the assembled alien representatives. The pulses were its immune system trying to fight the infection, like a fever in humans, but on a massive scale. The conference room was packed with delegates from across the galaxy. The recent crisis had drawn even more attention to their work. The Leviathan floated peacefully outside the massive observation windows, its crystalline body slowly healing, patches of clear, healthy crystal spreading across its surface. Jill pulled up the detailed scans on the holographic display. Look at these readings from before and after the crisis, he said, pointing to two distinct wave patterns. The parasites weren't just feeding on the Leviathan. They were hijacking its defensive systems. Yuri stepped forward to explain further. Think of it like this. When humans get a fever, our bodies heat up to fight infection. But imagine if something turned that fever response into a weapon, forcing our bodies to burn everything we touched. That's what was happening to the Leviathan. The alien representatives murmured among themselves. Ambassador Cole, who had once been so opposed to helping the creature, leaned forward with interest. You're saying all those destroyed stations, all those ships, were accidents, Kim Dai finished. The Leviathan was trying to heal itself, but the parasites turned its healing response into destruction. It was like a person thrashing in pain, but on a cosmic scale. Song Hui activated her communication link with the creature. Its response appeared as patterns of light across the room. It wants to show you something, she said softly. The holographic display changed, showing memories from the Leviathan's perspective. The assembled delegates watched in awe as they saw space through the creature's eyes. Beautiful, peaceful, full of energy and life they couldn't normally perceive. Then came the darkness, the moment of infection. The pain was evident even in the recording, making several delegates flinch. They watched as the creature tried to heal itself, only to have its attempts twisted into destruction. Its distress at causing harm was clear. The Leviathan's natural purpose is to maintain balance in space, Park Sun explained, pointing to earlier readings. Its electromagnetic pulses were meant to stabilize dying stars, clear space debris, help life flourish in the void. The parasites corrupted that purpose. Nam Gil highlighted a specific section of the creature's neural network. See these patterns. They're almost exactly like the pain response in Earth's whales. Universal suffering expressed through similar neural pathways. Pain is pain, no matter how large or small the being. The delegates watched as more recent recordings played. The first contact with the human medical team. The growing trust, the desperate battle against the accelerant. They saw their own ships and stations from the Leviathan's perspective, understanding for the first time how it had tried to avoid them even while in agony. But the destruction it caused, one delegate began, was less than it could have been, Yuri interrupted. Even in tremendous pain, even with its systems hijacked, it still tried to minimize the damage. The fact that any ship survived encounters with it shows remarkable restraint. The Leviathan pulsed with gentle light outside the window, as if acknowledging her words. Through Hua's translation, it expressed deep regret for the harm it had caused and a desire to make amends. Which brings us to our next proposal, Kim Da said, bringing up new diagrams. The Leviathan's natural abilities could be invaluable for space travel and exploration. Its understanding of cosmic energy could revolutionize our technology. But more importantly, it could help prevent similar tragedies. The creature's next transmission was lengthy. Hua translated, it says it has seen others of its kind in the far reaches of space. Some may also be infected. It wants to help find them, help heal them. And it wants to teach us how to prevent such weapons from being used again. The delegates were silent, processing this information. The monster they had feared for centuries was offering to be their teacher, their protector, their guide to understanding the deeper mysteries of space. Nam Gil showed one final set of readings, the Leviathan's current neural patterns. Look at these. Clear thoughts. No pain. No anger. This is its natural state. This is what it was always meant to be. Outside the window, the Leviathan moved with graceful purpose, its crystalline body now almost fully healed. Its movements were no longer the thrashing of a wounded beast, but the elegant dance of a cosmic being fulfilling its true nature. We have a choice, Yuri concluded. We can continue to fear what we don't understand, or we can learn from this experience. The Leviathan story teaches us that sometimes the most dangerous things in the universe are simply the most hurt, and that healing is possible if we're brave enough to try. The delegates began to nod, one by one. Even the most skeptical among them couldn't deny the evidence before their eyes. The galaxy's most feared creature had become something else entirely, not through force or containment, but through understanding and care. As the meeting concluded, the Leviathan sent one final message. Hua smiled as she translated. It says this is just the beginning. There are wonders in the void between stars that no one has ever seen. And now it can show us the way. 3 months after the emergency call, the Void Leviathan swam gracefully through space, its crystalline scales now gleaming with health. The creature had bonded deeply with its human saviors, particularly with Yuri and her team. The galaxy watched in amazement as the once feared beast became Earth's most powerful ally, using its natural abilities to protect human ships and colonies. More importantly, it became living proof of humanity's unique approach to the universe, seeing not monsters to be feared, but creatures in need of understanding and care. When other species now asked why humans were different, the answer was simple. In a galaxy that saw a monster, we saw a patient. The observation deck of the Interstellar Veterinary Court headquarters was packed with visitors from across the galaxy. They had come to witness something unprecedented. The Void Leviathan teaching human scientists about the mysteries of deep space. Watch this, said Yuri, as the massive creature demonstrated its ability to detect and stabilize failing stars. Its crystalline body glowed with pure energy as it channeled cosmic forces that human instruments could barely measure. The Leviathan's presence had changed everything. Space travel became safer as it cleared dangerous debris fields and marked safe passage routes through treacherous regions. Young creatures of its kind, drawn by its calls, began to appear from the void between galaxies. Each one was carefully checked for parasites and welcomed into protected space. Songhua's communication methods had evolved into a complex language of light and energy, allowing direct interaction between humans and space-dwelling beings. "They have so much to teach us," she often said, watching the Leviathan share its knowledge with eager students. The medical bay that had once been the site of desperate treatment was now a center for cosmic biological research. Kim Dai and his team studied the Leviathan's healing processes, developing new treatments for other space-dwelling creatures. "Remember when ships used to change course to avoid it?" Park Sun asked one day, watching the Leviathan gently guide a damaged freighter to safety. "Now they call for it by name." The name they had given it, Stellar Guardian, seemed to please the creature. It responded to the title with pulses of bright, happy light that made its entire crystalline body shimmer like a constellation. The parasites that had once tortured it became a subject of intense study. Nam Gil led the research team that developed early warning systems to detect similar biological weapons. The Leviathan's experience had taught them how to protect other beings from such attacks. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in how other species viewed humanity. The race that had dared to heal the galaxy's most feared creature was now sought out for their unique perspective on seemingly impossible problems. "They called us young and naive," Yuri said during a Galactic Council meeting. "But sometimes it takes fresh eyes to see past old fears." The Leviathan had taken to spending time near Earth when not needed elsewhere, its massive form visible from the planet's surface as a moving constellation. Children would watch it through telescopes, no longer afraid of the ancient space creature that now protected their world. 1 year after the emergency call, the team gathered for a celebration. The Leviathan put on a display of cosmic energy manipulation that lit up Earth's sky with colors humans had never seen before. Its joy was evident in every movement, every pulse of light. "It's not just grateful," Hua translated as the creature communicated with them. "It says we gave it more than healing. We gave it purpose again." The creature's presence had changed how humanity saw their place in the universe. They were no longer just another spacefaring race. They had become healers, mediators, the ones who could see past appearance to find the truth within. Other Leviathans began to appear, drawn by stories of healing and understanding. Each one brought new knowledge, new possibilities. The void between stars, once seen as empty and dangerous, revealed itself to be full of wonders that only these ancient creatures could show them. As Yuri watched the Leviathan teach young human students about cosmic energy fields, she remembered that first desperate emergency call. How close they had come to losing something precious before they even knew its worth. In the end, she would often say, the greatest discovery wasn't healing the Leviathan. It was learning that the universe isn't divided into monsters and heroes. Sometimes, all it takes is the courage to help instead of harm. The Leviathan's story became required learning at every medical academy in human space, not just for the technical details of the treatment, but for the larger lesson it taught, that compassion could bridge any gap, heal any wound, and turn the most feared creature in the galaxy into its greatest guardian. And as humanity reached further into space, they carried this lesson with them. They became known as the species who would help first and fear later, who saw potential where others saw threat. The species who had turned the galaxy's greatest monster into its most devoted protector. The answer remained simple. In a galaxy that saw a monster, we saw a patient. And in healing it, we healed something in ourselves.